Welcome to Raising Scholars, an educational broadcast brought to you by the Lake Havasu Unified School District in partnership with Shawn, Lawless, and 32 Bravo Media. This is a podcast designed for families to hear all about the mission and vision of learning which is being carried out at LHUSD for both the academic and social-emotional growth of students in our district. It is also a place to share tips, tools, advice, and reflections on how our schools, families, and community can help our students learn to make the most of their potential in their K-12 learning experience. We are so excited to be bringing to you a conversation on a variety of topics from educators, parents, administrators, alumni, and even students across our district. Our goal for you each time is to leave with a little bit more knowledge on how to help your students be successful, so let's dive on in together. John Moss has been an educator for 8 years. He joined the Lake Havasu Unified School District in 2020 as the principal at Lawless Elementary School. He now serves in the role of Director of Student Services, helping to guide our specialists and our educators in supporting the differentiated needs of the students in our district schools. He has a background in positive behavior intervention that serves him really well in his role, and his experience allows him to understand the variety of needs that our students face each day, as well as how to utilize the supports that are needed to help them be successful. So, John, I'm super excited to welcome you here today to the Raising Scholars podcast. How are you?
Great. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to kind of dive into the topic with you today. So, as you know, the podcast that we're recording is really for parents. It's to help parents have supportive tools and resources, and for us to be a tool for them to get to know the kind of things that are available to their kids to support them. And one of the best things that I feel about our district is that we really do try to reach every student every day, no matter what it takes, right? That's our motto. So that's why you're here. And so the topic we're going to be diving in with you today with is understanding your child's needs, what you need to know about your child to support their learning. And so we're really excited to have you share from your perspective how parents can really learn about their kids' needs and to dig in with their administrators and their teachers to help support them. So let's get started together, okay?
Yeah.
The first question I'd really like to ask you is just about yourself. So tell us a little bit about your background in education and then your role in Lake Havasu Unified School District. How did your path lead you to your role as an administrator?
Sure. So it's a long journey in a way. During high school and early college, I worked at a Boys and Girls Club. Okay. Fell in love with it, loved working with kids, knew that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I got my degree in business administration, thought that's where I wanted to be, and then had a superintendent reach out and say, hey, why don't you try this?
Sure.
Thought about it, jumped in, and fell in love with education.
That's so cool.
It was clear that was my passion.
Kids have a way of pulling you in.
They do, and they're good at it.
Yes.
Got my master's degree in math education because I love math and passionate about it.
That's great. I may need you someday for my kids.
I'm here. And then as I worked in a few different schools, I saw a lot happening with student discipline and our kids who really need us the most.
Sure.
And that kind of drove my passion to say, this is an area I care about. This is somewhere I can help.
Okay.
So I got my ed specialist degree, which is kind of like the first half of a doctorate degree in administration with a focus on behavior and discipline. And was just kind of driven through my internship and my process to start looking for administration roles.
Oh, that's great.
And Havasu and I found each other, and here I am.
And so a lot of your background is in PBIS, which for parents who don't know the acronym is Positive Behavior Intervention Support.
Agreed.
And your role as a Director of Student Services is really diving into that as well with our teachers, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's one of my big happy places is being able to recognize something going on with kids and being able to help them. So we have areas where we could be very punitive in our discipline, but having an opportunity to work with parents, with teachers and community members to come up with something that's going to support them, the intervention and support, that's meaningful work.
Well, because kids don't have issues if you can help them before the issues occur, right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep.
So thinking a little bit more about your role that you're serving in this year, we've worked together as administrators before, and you within a director position this year, your role is much more broad, right? And you have a lot more students to serve. So what do you think the biggest hurdle for our students would be who may face learning deficits or require additional support during their developmental years? What advice would you have for parents who have to support students that have those types of needs?
So thinking about this, I'm gonna think students very broad, not only in our district
Sure.
but across the state and country.
Okay.
For those needs, and it's really the identification of what that is, and then how to support them.
Okay.
And this is an area I feel we do well in Lake Havasu.
Sure.
So a lot, especially our younger kids, they have these challenges, and school systems, not at their own fault, don't always identify the appropriate way to support them.
Right.
So in our district, and a lot of our families know, we have the student intervention teams that come together as soon as we start
Which are
seeing
very
those
important.
concerns.
Yes.
Agreed. And work through a very systematic process to support kids. And that's something that I think we do well, but as a collective education group, we need to keep working on.
Sure. Yes.
And the parents' role in that is so important because
agree.
they know these kids better than anyone else.
Yeah. We have questions we need answered, and it's not always from the teachers, right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
And parents have questions too.
Sure.
And we're here to help answer those and really work together.
Absolutely. So, thinking about the parents who are supporting those kids, what advice would you give them on how to ask questions about, like, maybe they have something that their kids are going through, but they can't really identify it? What ways would you advise them to move forward with trying to find out more information?
So I think the best place to start is with whoever that trusted person on staff is, whether it's the classroom teacher, the counselor, the principal, and start that dialogue. Hey, I'm seeing this, can you help? In the classroom when we work with kids, we tell them there's no such thing as a dumb question.
Right.
The same goes for parents. If you're noticing something at home, let us know. Ask. We might not see it. We might see it and already be thinking. But really just that conversation, that start of, I'm noticing this.
Yeah. Well, because they're the first person that's going to be noticing, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so thinking about your role as Director of Student Services, what information would you provide for parents about the types of services that we already provide? Like thinking about maybe that next step, maybe you have identified that there might be something that your student needs support for. Can you tell parents a little bit more about the types of roles that you support directly?
Sure, and the first part I'll start with is what we call Child Find, which I know you're familiar with, and some of our parents, again, might know.
Yeah.
But it's a law that as soon as we start to see these things, we make a referral to Child Find. And that referral can come from a parent, teacher, community member, anyone.
Administrator.
Administrator,
Yeah.
right? Special teacher, even a classified personnel, custodian. Anyone who works with this child, this student, and notices something can start the process.
Right.
And then we go into our identification, we do some testing, some observations to help narrow it down. That process can take a lot of different paths that could involve special education, might not, but it allows us to activate a lot of things that happen in student services.
Yep. And one of the things I think parents don't often know is that that's an ongoing determination. It's not like something that you have to have at the beginning of the year.
Agreed.
This is an ongoing evaluation tool.
Correct.
Right.
And actually something we do is once a month in our district at our developmental preschool at Smoke Tree Elementary, we host a Child Find.
Right.
And that's a Thursday morning. You can call and make an appointment. You can come by. But we have specialists there, special ed teacher. We have therapist and nurse who's there just in case there's anyone in our community who wants that information and wants a screening, they can come. And that's year round, even in the summer.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you're sharing that because there are so many parents who just don't know that that's there. They don't know maybe on our website where to look, or the fact that a lot of their teachers know this information, right?
Right. The other thing too that I think about a lot that parents might not know is that's not only for school age children. So we can start as early as 0. If you start noticing those things that you as a parent might be concerned about, let us know, and we're here to help 0 to 21.
Right. And especially with some of those needs like speech, the earlier you find out and the earlier we can support it, the more beneficial it is for the student.
Right. Yeah. And that's a great segue into the question you were actually asking.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of support. Speech is one area that we do have therapists on staff that can help.
Right.
But we also have occupational therapy, physical therapy, and then we have counselors, like psychs who work with them, special ed teachers. So it's really a great amount of support that we can put in place for kids when they need it.
And can you go a little bit further into occupational therapy for parents who may not understand what occupational therapy is for? Students who need occupational therapy support can need a variety of services. So can you give a couple examples of that?
Right. And I do want to clarify, when we think occupational, sometimes we think of jobs. So this is more, I think of like hand movements, things like holding a pencil properly, using scissors, those kind of things is a lot of it, how to write letters.
Right.
But we also offer the other side through life skills class and programs in self-contained settings, where we have kids who, as they grow up, they might need more of like how to cook, how to go shopping.
Right.
And we offer those programs as well.
It looks different over the prospective course of their development.
Right.
Right. And I think a lot of the parents who have students maybe potentially with like sensory needs, that's also something an occupational therapist would help with. So, and there's a lot of students who have that, who need support in that area.
Right.
Yeah.
And it matches well with our district. You talked about every student, every day, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
That is special education.
It is.
There's not a one-size-fits-all for any student. When we meet with them, we develop that team that involves the administrator, the parent, the teacher. At some levels, as the kids get older, the kid themselves, the student themselves, because we want it to be specialized and individual for them.
Well, and that's the whole purpose of special education, is to be able to provide that sort of support and help the student be able to reach their potential as long as they need it.
Agreed.
And hopefully flourish once they're out of it as well.
Yep.
Right. So let's dive into the next question a little bit. What role does a student's learning style play in supporting their success, and how can parents determine what types of teaching style their student best responds to?
Right. So there's a lot of different learning styles people talk about. I think a lot about visual, auditory, and kinesthetic.
Yes.
So, and by that we mean the way that we like to learn. So for me, I'm a visual person. I like my checklist. I like to read things.
Yeah.
My wife gets frustrated with me because she'll read something to me, and then I'll just say, "Can I read it for myself?" Because I need that.
I know how that feels.
Yep. And that's part of my style.
Yes.
So as parents, as educators, it helps for us to know how our kids learn, how they interact, and how they process information.
Sure.
And as a parent, especially with younger kids, it's a great position to be in because you get to watch your kids. You get to do the observation. And I always advise people, watch what they do when they have a problem.
Right.
When they're faced with a challenge, how do they work through it? Do they need to touch things, move things? Is that kinesthetic movement?
Sure.
Do they like to listen, process? Do they have to read it and look at it?
Right.
And then once you're on that track, it's a great time again to reach out, have conversations, do research, but talk to your child's teacher, the school, and work through it. And there's different things, like with visual people, for me, checklists are great.
Yes.
Right.
Those visuals, I mean, it even works for chores.
Yep.
You think about things that they need to remember in the classroom. Sometimes it's things that they need to remember at home too. Is if they are visual, they definitely do thrive off of more visual cues for sure.
And then there's some students who are the auditory piece where the checklist isn't going to do much for them.
No.
But that verbal reminder, that the verbal prompting, when they hear it, they go, "Oh yeah, I know what I'm supposed to do in the next piece."
Which is why sometimes when you see an IEP, there's an accommodation listed that says repeated reminders, right? It's because those types of children, it's not that they aren't listening all the time. Sometimes it is, but more often than not, they just need that quick reminder to be able to get back on task, right?
Yep.
One of the other examples of that I always think about is reading, right? There's a lot of students who do struggle with reading, but that maybe have a low fluency, but a higher level of comprehension that comes with more auditory learning, because a student may struggle with reading, but may be able to understand the content if a parent reads out loud to them, or if the teacher repeats what they said, or potentially they were reading something in a classroom, but the teacher verbally explains it again. Right. Those are all ways I think that parents, if they are paying attention the way that you're talking about, once you are able to learn what your students' needs are, it's much easier to support that. So thank you for those examples. That's amazing. So thinking about, we had just talked about some of the things that you would potentially do based on their learning style, right? That kind of rolls me back into that conversation about intervention and how important intervention is. So the question that I had been thinking to ask you was, what role does intervention play in supporting our students at school, but also at home, right?
Right. So intervention is kind of like those steps we put in place for the extra support.
Right.
So I think math, again, that's my comfort area. When we see a kid in an older grade who maybe struggles with multiplication, we'd put in multiplication interventions to help them build that not only ability but confidence.
Right.
And intervention is that place to get targeted support. So in school, it's a lot of like small group interactions, student-specific instruction that we're able to really help them, again, with skills and confidence.
Right.
And then at home, the support comes in knowing what it is we're working on and helping reinforce that.
Right.
There's so much that a parent can do to help out, even again with multiplication when you're walking through the store, asking those questions and just being involved is a great way to help support it.
Well, and for subjects like reading and math intervention, one of the things that at the school level we have is a tiered intervention, right? So thinking about that, Tier 1, just basic classroom instruction, Tier 2, small group, as you're suggesting, and then the Tier 3 being that one-on-one support. So much of that we do rely on parents, right, to support, whether it's math and you're just practicing those math facts, or whether you're at home reading out loud to them at night, or whatever that looks like. I recall really always wanting, as an administrator, for parents to reach out if they needed suggestions for that. And then, I just know that that in positions like yours, right, there's so many kids that we are trying to meet to help support, and that parent is really that, it's like that well-rounded tool, right? Yeah.
And you mentioned reading intervention, something neat that parents in our district probably know if they have a student in K1, 2, 3, is we do a program called Dibbles, and that's a regular benchmarking of where students are at. And when that happens, it prompts a letter to go home, normally at parent-teacher conferences, where a teacher, with the help of this program, can explain, this is where your child's at, these are areas they're struggling, and there's a sheet that comes with that that has ideas for them to work on at home. So again, it's that partner mix where we really want to support kids, and we know parents do too, and that's a tool we can use.
And if there's not anything at home, there's always tools that from the classroom the teachers can send to.
Absolutely.
So thinking about, again, that parent side of the role, how can parents best help their students at home when they're experiencing difficulty with homework or learning? What routines do you feel like really help support learning the best?
Absolutely, and great question. I think that word routines is important. And it's going to look different in every single family and every home. I know for us, my daughter's in preschool. We have to have a routine for her. So we know it's come home, whatever activity she has to do. It's not really homework yet, but an activity, play, dinner, play, bath time, and then we read and go to bed. So she just knows it's programmed into her that that's the expectation, and then we work to reinforce it.
That's good.
The other part of that routine that's always important for parents is to model what it looks like. So model asking questions of your child, have that conversation, but also it's good to model the struggle. So if there's something that you're not familiar with, even if you do know it, ask questions. Have your child help you work through it. It builds their confidence, but it shows them that it's okay to not know everything. You'll get through it, and it builds that grit.
Absolutely. And sometimes the students are able to explain it more thoroughly than they thought they could.
Agreed.
Okay, so the last question we have is, what advice do you have to give parents on how they can be their child's advocate throughout their educational career? Because that is probably one of the most important roles they play throughout their life, right, is being that advocate. So can you share some tips maybe for the parents on that?
Yeah, and the first part, and I've said it a few times, is parents have a connection to these kids that no matter how hard we try, we'll never get. We love every kid that comes into our buildings, but not the same way a parent does. And parents always know their kids at a different level than us. So having those conversations with them, engaging with them, and making sure that those kids know you're there to support them and you're there to ask questions, be involved, is so important and a great way to advocate. And then when you do, through those conversations, hear things that kind of make you go, ask the questions, because we might not know them. I mean, I think a lot about kids who go through the school day. We think everything's great, and then they get into the car and it's just, here's everything that they don't share with their teacher, they don't share with us, but they share with their parents because that's their safe place. And a parent, again, is that partner with us. It's a great way for us to bridge it.
Well, and if they don't share with us, there's no way we can follow through with that, follow up with the student to help support them at school too. And then the other part, again, is just knowing as parents, you as parents are always welcome to ask questions and to be involved. And I shared with a parent in an IEP meeting recently, they had something they were advocating for. The team didn't come to that agreement, but I shared with them, every IEP meeting you have, if you still feel that's right, bring it up and let's have the conversation every single time. That's great advice.
Because we really believe in these kids. We know parents do too. And the kids are worth the time to take and answer those questions.
Absolutely. And what I love about just that team-focused conversation is that that's how we really do feel in our schools, is that whether it's an IEP team or just a student parent teacher conference,
Yep.
That like unified conversation is almost every single time what it comes down to is really getting everybody on the same page with communication, right?
Right.
Yeah. Thank you so much for kind of that insight today. So that kind of rounds up our actual topic questions. We're going to have a little bit of fun before I let you go.
Okay.
And we're going to do something called rapid fire, which is just a really fun way of asking some questions so that the people who are watching actually get to know you a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to have fun with this. Are you ready?
All right.
Okay. What was your favorite thing about where you grew up or went to high school?
My favorite thing about where I went to high school was the school pride that my group had.
That's great.
And I share that cautiously. I don't know if I want to fully put this out there, but I think you know where I went to high school.
Yeah.
It's not too far from Lake Havasu High. The colors are green and gold.
I don't know.
But I loved that sense. You know, my group didn't miss a home football game.
Yeah.
We were at almost every basketball game. We went to baseball, softball.
Yeah.
And we bought into it and we loved it.
Yeah.
And it was such a great experience for us.
Very much like LHUSD.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I think of Doctor Strange with like the time stone. I would want that.
Go back in time or forward in time?
Yep, and the ability to not necessarily, I don't know if I would interact with things, but just to be able to go and see things that have happened.
Sure.
Outside of math, I'm
like
a little
historically?
bit, right. To be able to go and see
that would be
what's
great.
happened.
I don't think I'd thought about that. Good suggestion.
Yeah.
All right, so what is one thing you would tell your 10-year-old self now to help give them perspective?
I think I would encourage a younger John to take risks, to be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat reserved, and I like to really know before I do something, and I wish middle school, high school, I would have stepped out a little bit and known that middle school, high school, and really extracurricular things, sports, it was a safe place, and it still is a safe place as an adult to take chances, but that would be my suggestion.
That's really great advice. I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, so that's good advice.
There we go.
Yeah. What was your favorite subject?
Math, all day. I like that math, it's somewhat defined. There's different ways to get an answer.
There's a structure to it, yeah.
Right, but there's an answer.
And worst?
English.
I'm the opposite of that, so I'll always come to you for the math questions then. Who was the most influential person so far in your life?
Outside of the school realm, my wife, absolutely.
Yeah.
Shout out to Kim Moss, my absolute best friend in the world. She drives me, and you know, her and our kids make me want to do better every day.
Sure.
And then
absolutely.
on the school side, I had a teacher in middle school, Mike McClurg. Still think about him all the time. Just his passion for kids and the belief in every student was big for me. Whether you were an honors kid or you were the kid who really, really struggled academically or behaviorally, he believed in every single one, and that was huge.
That's such an important thing to have as an educator.
Yeah.
Okay, so last few. What type of learner are you? Well, you already said that.
Yeah.
You're visual.
I'm visual.
Okay. Well, PE or art? Or music. I'll give you a third
Music.
option.
I was a band kid. There you go.
There you
Thanks
go.
for the rescue.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
So early on, middle school, I wanted to be a politician, be in government, and then I knew I wanted to work with kids.
Sure.
After that.
Yeah.
So I think I made the right choice.
Okay, and what is your favorite book that you remember from reading when you were in school?
Oh man, I was a Harry Potter kid, so I'm good with all of them.
That dates me.
Oh, man.
That's okay. It dates me because I was teaching by the time Harry Potter came out, but that's okay. John, it's really, really just super exciting to be able to hear your perspective. I'm thankful to be able to work with you as a colleague in Lake Havasu Unified, and I look forward to more conversations. So thank you for talking to our parents with me today.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah?
Okay.
How was the time?
You're at right at 20 minutes.
We want to take the time today to thank you and Shawn Lawless from 32 Bravo Media for helping make our Raising Scholars broadcast a reality. You can tune into this or any new episode at our LHUSD website, on our communications page, on our Lake Havasu Unified School District Facebook page and YouTube channel, or linked into our quarterly newsletters. Don't forget to tune in to our next episode with Nicole Gray to help parents understand how to build math minds in our kids. We can't wait to see you there, because at the end of the day, the most overwhelming key to a child's success is the positive involvement of parents.
Add it up.